Roger, Roger. You're good, readable. It's just a lot of stations shifting on each other. Roger, you're good.
Charlie, over.
What's going on, everyone? It is your temporary host, Sergeant Hannah Clifton, here with my co-host, Sergeant Katie Barger-Huff. We are here with another episode of the Lima Charlie podcast. We're here talking with members of the educational office, as well as some of our Indiana National Guard members who have used their educational benefits. Would you guys like to introduce yourself for us?
Sure. I'm Sergeant First Class Fordyce. I'm the Education and Incentives NCOIC.
Sergeant Mark Clayton, school counselor on the civilian side in the Army National Guard.
I'm Tech Sergeant Dransoff from the Air National Guard. I'm an imagery analyst and a student.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for joining us today. So can you tell us a little bit about the GI Bill and how it can help some of the members of the National Guard with their education?
Sure. The GI Bill is one of those education programs that as long as a soldier comes in on a 6-year contract, they're eligible once they graduate AIT and have their MOS documents and everything else uploaded into, IPERMs and everything else, we make them eligible inside the system. So with that, they have the 1606, right? So the 1606 is the one that the traditional soldiers are eligible for to use with the GI Bill. I think it's about $437, $439 a month right now, but they can use that towards just about anything they want to do, right? So they can use that in conjunction with federal tuition assistance now. It used to be you had to kind of choose, and now that they're able to use that, it doesn't just have to be for college though, okay? So they can use that for any type of some things we're going to talk about here in a little bit, credentials, certificates, lots of different places. And it doesn't just have to be schools here in the U.S. either. It can be, we've had schools soldiers go to school in London using their GI Bill, just different things. It's one of those things you can use pretty much anywhere out there that accepts it, obviously. But it has a wide range of uses that's available for the soldiers as long as they maintain good standing in the National Guard.
Okay, and does that just go to the tuition, or can they use it for books? And
so it depends on which one they're using. So the 1606, they're going to get that stipend. It's whatever 400 and I think it's like $437, $439 a month right now, right? So the post 9/11 is when you get into the tuition and you get into the more bang for the buck depending on their rating, right? So depending on your qualifying periods of active service, determines your percentage you're going to get towards your 100% rate, right? So 36 months of active federal service maxes you out, so you would get up to 100% tuition. There's a cap for all of these things, right? So there's a cap for all this. So that stipend that for the GI Bill with the 1606 goes directly to the soldier. Any tuition funds goes directly to the school. Okay, so like let's say I'm doing an online school and I'm using my GI Bill, but my school is in a high BAH area. That's not how they do it. So there's a cap on your online schools at a flat rate, so that way people aren't trying to, kind of pick a school that's going to get them a higher paycheck, based on their monthly stipend. So those things, but yeah, some of that money goes to the student. Others goes directly to the school. Anything tuition related goes directly to the school.
Okay. And so for the post 9/11, you said it's based off of active duty time.
Mm-hmm.
So does like AIT and basic training, does that count as active duty time towards?
It can once you get to a certain point, but initially no. So when you first come in, that time does count, but not until you hit, I believe, 24 months. Once you're over 24 months, that time can count towards your 3 years of AFS. Like a lot of people think ADOS count. Not all ADOS counts, right? So a lot of people that come on just normal ADOS, that time does not count. So like, remember everybody was on COVID orders, okay? COVID orders counted because it was deemed that it was emergency proclamation where those categories of orders and that funding code was authorized in that GI Bill. They go by codes, right? So Title 10 is a code. Title 32 typically is not, unless it is like, let's say AGR or some of these other codes that are on there. That time ended up counting for the soldiers, which was great because we had all those soldiers on those COVID orders, what now makes them post 9/11 eligible, which is a greater benefit. And it's also the one that can be transferred to a dependent or spouse.
Okay. Wonderful.
Could you explain the COOL program and how it can benefit the National Guard members in their career advancement?
All right. So COOL. It's for Air Force, they have Air Force COOL, Army COOL, Marine COOL, all these others. Basically, it is a online program. Well, it's an online website that you go on there and you look at all these different credentials. Okay. So Army Cool, you get on there, there's around 1,700 and some right now that's on there for like truck driver, EMT, private pilot's license, senior HR, all these different credentials and certificates that can help you advance your civilian careers, but not necessarily give you a degree, because that's the difference, right? So the Army Cool program is more for all these different credentials and certificates and not degree based. Everything else, you're using FTA. Well, with your FTA, it's one pot of money. So you have 16 credits, right? 16 credits or $4,000 a year to use towards credentials, certificates, and all these other things that are out there. Okay. So, but it is using from the same pot. So like if Sergeant Clifton's going to school, right? She's using FTA, but she also wants to go get a credential. It's pulling from the same pot of money. So you have to know where your money is coming from and manage that accordingly. So that's why we always try to talk to all these students/soldiers that are coming in that wanting to do these multiple things, because how do you maximize your benefit to get where you want to go, knowing that it could take you, let's say, 4 years to get your bachelor's degree. What can we do to help you right now, right? So if you have FTA, which is your 16 credits annually, starting 1 October to 30 September, and you have, we'll talk about this in a little bit, the National Guard Supplemental Grant as well, but you want to get something that's going to benefit you right now. How can we do that? Well, you can do that using credentialing, right? So you could potentially go out there and get a credential or a certificate that can maybe get you a part-time job or a better job right now to help you through college. If college is going to take you X amount of years and you know that, what can you do to better your situation? Maybe give you some more on-the-job experience right now to help you for when you graduate to maybe land that better job with experience, as opposed to just having a degree in underwater basket weaving, because we always use that in the military, right? But if you can get a part-time job right now with a certificate to do underwater basket weaving and get that experience, and now you have a degree, you're coming into that job interview with experience and a degree, and that's probably going to help set you apart from some of those other people that apply.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So the Cool program, it's great. It doesn't have to be like, for the Army specifically, it doesn't have to be based on your MOS. Okay. So if I'm 11 Bravo 88 Mike 27 Delta 42 Alpha, I don't have to choose a credential or certificate that's related to any of my MOSs. I can pretty much get on there and choose anyone I want. I could go get CrossFit certification on there if I wanted to. I could go get anything that's out there that's on the 1,700 that are out there, as long as I go through the proper steps to request that funding and I had that funding available. Does that kind of make sense and answer the question?
Yes, it does.
So the Army Cool website, and then there's a separate process to go through and request the funding to pay for those things on Army Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people, when they think of education benefits, they're only thinking about college and going to a university, getting an undergrad. They're not really thinking there's a lot of people that might want to get into trades or trade skills or get a certification, that it doesn't require an undergrad. So there's still a lot of benefits to help those people as well.
Great point. And we try to make sure we emphasize that when we go out and do these briefs, is that like college is not for everyone, right? So every time anyone hear education benefits or just benefits in general, they always go, it's only for college. It's not, right? So you have 16, that's why I always say it like this. You have 16 credits a year or $4,000. So that $4,000 you can use for whatever you want. Like they can't keep truck drivers on the road right now. So you could get a CDL if you want to do that. Or, private pilot's license is huge right now for a lot of people, because they want to try to get in doing that to get somewhere else, maybe down the road. All these HR certificates and credentials and EMT and all these different things that are out there, you can do that in the trades. Like you said, GI Bill, you can use some credentialing. You can do all these different trades and things that are out there for, mechanics, all these different vehicle related things that are, there's so many out there. I tried to look through this list and it's ridiculous. Like I said, 1,700 of them, but you're right. It doesn't have to be just for college, because a lot of people can't or don't need to, but like what could set you apart at your current job? Like they walked into this job, they're already kind of, have a decent job when they get out of high school, they landed it, but what can get them to the next level? And maybe one of these manager positions that is out there, they could try to get one of these credentials or some type of, leadership training through any of these programs that are out there to maybe set themselves apart from their peers that are at the same job to maybe get that promotion down the road. Right. So tons of opportunities that are out there. And that's the one thing, we talk to a lot of soldiers. Once they get out, they're always calling to see what benefits they have available now that they're out, right? Well, the only thing you have available once you're out is post 9/11 if you qualified for that, okay? The other things that are not specific to service in the Guard, there may be some other things that are out there, some grants or scholarships that are not from us, but post 9/11 is all you're going to have. So maximize your benefits for your FTA, your $4,000 a year for whatever you want. Because that 6 years, you could use, let's say $24,000. I'm not a mathematician, but $24,000 for your first contract that you could use if you're not going to use it for college towards credentials. Okay. So once you get out, you just threw that money down the drain. Like I know I didn't use it for the longest time until I started going back to college. So how much money did I waste and not utilize to set myself up for success upon retirement or whatever, that I don't have an excuse except for I just didn't do it. So we try to make sure soldiers know that that money is out there, because once you get out, it's not.
So, with the COOL program,
Mhm.
do you have to go to an in-state
No.
institution?
No. Good question, though, because that is just specific for, let's say, the National Guard Supplemental Grant, because it is a state fund. With your GI Bill and your COOL programs, they're federal funds. So it's pretty much, if they're on the Army COOL website, you can go no matter where they are. But it's obviously up to you if you're going to drive out to Montana to do buffalo herding certificate, right? So whatever it is, if it's not in Indiana, like some of the CDL programs and some of these other ones, you're going to be obviously responsible to it. Like we had a guy that wanted to do, I don't know if it's the right pronunciation for the Gemology Institute, but it was in California, right? So obviously Indiana National Guard is not going to pay for him to go to California to do this, but he wanted to use his GI Bill and some other benefits out there. And he was able to use some, but not all of them, because it was not set up through COOL, but some of the other ones were, but he wanted to go to that specific program, right? So, those are decisions the student/soldier makes. And obviously, if it's, like I said, we had an example, there was a soldier going to London using the GI Bill. So as long as it's on that approved list, and schools know if they take the GI Bill or anything else out there, then you can go.
That's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So also, how can National Guard members use their ASVAB or their AFCT, not ACFT,
Right.
scores, and what are the benefits of doing that?
So it's not like we don't have enough acronyms, right? So we
Right.
have the ASVAB when you come in, and then it's the AFCT, and now we have the ACFT, because everything's similar. Now people are getting confused. So that one is about, when you first come in, like how many people took the ASVAB to get out of class, right? How many of us even remember? Like we help administer this in our office, and I look at some of the questions sometimes, and I took the ASVAB over 23 years ago, and I'm sitting there going, man, I'm glad I don't have to take this now. If you come in and you qualify for that MOS and maybe you're happy, but then you become unhappy, or you decide you want to do something else with your military career, or you want to become an officer, warrant, do something else, you have to go off your qualifications. So like if you look at the line scores, each MOS has a line score requirement. If your line scores are not up to that standard, or to become an officer, let's say 110 GT or above for some of these programs, you need to raise your line score. So how do you do that? So we have found over the years that, with soldiers, and everybody gets this way, is sometimes you need to be held accountable to push yourself, right? So if you've got life going on and you've got all these different things going on, and you're trying to get out there and you're trying to improve your line scores, but you're just kind of looking at it, ASVAB Test for Dummies or whatever that book is, right? Getting on an app and downloading those things. People were coming in and not necessarily doing better or doing it as good as they needed to in order to get that score they needed. So, with Mr. Gadan and some of the other people, and looking at some of the programs and things out there, we developed kind of a tutoring program that we are offering here in the state, with people that work for the education office to help people improve their line scores. Okay, so because once you come in and if you don't get what you need, it's 6 months that you have to wait to take it again, unless you go through, there's a 40-hour course that you can take, or if you go through our BSEP course, which is a 5-day course that we put on that is basically tutoring and all this other stuff. And did one of you go to it?
I actually went through that
That's right.
course, and it worked out very well. I think that I'm a fairly busy person,
Right.
so studying over time is not my thing.
Yep.
And it was a week of you just cram and you work really hard down at Atterbury, and I improved my score, I think, by 25 points.
That's great.
So it was really great, opened tons of doors for me. And it was something that was kind of weighing on me because I was starting to feel limited in my military career. And by improving my score, I just saw tons of doors open. So I was a little wary about the program initially, but it's taught in a way that it's not too overwhelming, which that's what I was really impressed with. It's a lot of information.
Right.
And you're looking at those test packets and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, especially the online
Mm-hmm.
random stuff that you can find, your ASVAB practice tests. And so I was very impressed by the program. I really liked it a lot. And I recommend it to anyone who's trying to improve their score and open more doors.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's
Great.
been really successful. Again, we've found that we have 2 tutors right now, and I know we're working with the state command team to get more people to help, because right now we have Chief Deininger, who's up in the northern part of the state, and we have Sergeant Muling that works here in Indy, but he handles kind of the southern part of the state for now. But they're both great, right? So they both try to cater to once they meet the soldier and they work with them, they try to see what helps that soldier specifically. Okay, everybody learns in different ways. Some people need a ruler to smack in the head to get things through to them, or you got to kind of sit there and argue with them to get them to understand. But that's the best thing about our team and the way we have it set up, is it's not just going by what's in a folder, right? We're not just giving you a folder and going, okay, here, you need to learn and you need to improve your ASVAB. So we're working with everybody to try to get it, because our goal is to help the National Guard, all the soldiers in the Indiana National Guard, we want them to stay in, right? Retention.
Right.
So how do we do that? If you're in a specific MOS and you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, not everybody's cut out to be 11 Bravo, 42, 27, whatever it is. If they want to change, they're going to get frustrated. And if they can't get that line score, some of them just give up, right? So if we can't do this to help them, what are we doing? Like I said, giving them the tools to succeed. Now we have all these people that have a 110 or above, or whatever they needed in that other area. They can go become warrant officers. They can go become officers, regular commission officers. They can go become different MOS, cyber, all these other things where we need people in these positions. That's the great thing about what we're doing and trying to get that program to expand, because we have a lot of people in this tutoring program, like a lot. Like, there's always people reaching out for more, and we're always trying to, meet those demands. But, we've got people that may be out for a little while. So we're trying to get other people to cover down so we can continue to tutor these kids.
So it's an Indiana program.
So this one specifically is, yes.
Okay.
There's another one that's out there there's a PEC course that's offered. It's a little different than what we're doing, right? So it's not as structured. Ours is more lax, and we work directly with everybody. We're trying to make this to where it's we would like it to be a course offered at RTI, right, here in Indiana, if we can do that. But we're working through all that stuff. It's not something you can just do. It's got to have funding behind it, and you got to have all these different things for meals and lodging and all this other stuff. So we're doing a great job working with these other programs that are out there to house people, feed them, and do these different things to get people down at Atterbury for that course like what you were at. But we want to sustain it. So we're working through all that stuff to try to get it out there.
That's exciting. How long has it been running for?
I think it's been over a year now.
Okay. So it's a relatively new program.
Yes, very new.
Okay.
Yep.
It's pretty awesome.
Yep. Because we were able to bring people on, I think, at the end of last year on ADOS to help with this program, because it was just, trying to do it as an additional duty was not possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
that's their full-time job.
And that program is super great about being flexible with people. They can schedule throughout the day, like any time. That I think one of the tutors is available until 9 p.m.
Wow.
And it's like you can even do it like through video chat. So you don't have to be right in Indianapolis. If you're all the way up in Elkhart, you can still contact one of the tutors, which I thought was super impressive that it's like accessible.
Absolutely.
That's really awesome.
Even with Sergeant Muling, who's HR in our office, we give the ultimate flexibility for if he's working with a soldier that has a different work schedule, we adjust his schedule based on all of that. So same with Chief Deininger. She's the one
I love her.
She's a workaholic, right? But, they're both great, and they're completely flexible. Like you said, virtual, in person, wherever. He's met them at coffee shops, anywhere else. It doesn't even matter. So yeah, it's great.
And Sergeant Clayton, have you used have you used one of these programs?
Yes, I did the tutoring program for the AFCT
Okay.
to improve the GT with Miss D, and it was phenomenal. It was really, 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 really good, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I may have taken advantage of it when it initially released.
Oh, okay.
I saw an email that came across that said like in-person tutoring, and I responded like, sign me up. So I may have been one of the very first people to get into the program, and she would tell me initially that we can do it online or in person. And then I told her, well, I live in Chicago. I don't know where you are, but I'm in Chicago. So it started off online. So we would meet online, share the screen, and go over. It was very interactive. So it wasn't just online and like watching the screen. It was an actual interactive type thing because she was able to share the screen and then I can kind of write on it. Was different. It was really different, but it was very helpful. And then also if we needed to do in person, she would come to wherever I was.
Wow.
We made arrangements to meet at the library closest to my house.
Wow.
So we did that one time, and then when my unit, we were drilling at Atterbury, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna be at Atterbury this weekend if you want to meet up for tutoring. I'm like, can you call my commander, please? She called him, and he let me go to tutoring and with her instead of with the unit. So
So you were able to split train for that.
well, it wasn't really split train. It was, we're going to the range, you're going to tutoring.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
So I spent the day, actually I spent the whole weekend with her doing tutoring versus being with my unit at Atterbury.
Okay.
So, it's really great when your leadership buys into your success
Mm-hmm.
and sees the value in you progressing. And I know we have this whole idea, not even just the idea, but the whole, nobody's supposed to hold you back. But they could have easily said, do that on your own time.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, good on your commander for valuing you enough to let you go do that and letting you break away, because that is something, especially with the new people first policy. Well, I guess it's not new, but tax policy, people first. That's a perfect example of that.
Very good example of people first. He knew I wanted to go to officer school, and it was like, okay, by any means necessary, like go do what you need to do, and I support you 100%.
And so you also work in education.
I do.
We talked a little bit about this before. So how was it kind of taking like an Army educational course, or taking like a tutoring program with the military as an educator?
I felt like one of my students. I'm be honest with you. I literally was like, okay, here I am with a whole master's degree, but yet I'm struggling to get past this basic third grade math. Because when it was broken down and I looked at it, it really was like simple, basic math with just a few added words to just make it appear that it's complicated. But it's really not. And I really felt like the students, and I'm like, oh my God, now I see why they struggle.
Yeah.
Because I'm struggling. But the way that Ms. D had broke it down, it helped me to like, okay, I know more than I think I know. And that was the thing, was one, confidence and not being afraid of word problems. And that's the thing. It's the word problems that get people more so than just the order of operation. And what she taught me to do better at that is when you approach a word problem in math, you always know it's going to be one of four operations. It's either going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. And you just need to figure out which one it is. That's all they're asking you to do, is one of four operations. And once you can look for the buzzword that determines whether we're dividing or multiplying or adding or subtracting, the rest of it is easy. And when I saw the examples and we went over it a little, more and more, I realized basic math, order of operation. And I tell my students that it's four operations. You either adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Figure that out, and the rest is history.
I love that. So it actually helped you in your career as well, or do you feel like you can relate better to your students? I think that's pretty cool.
Because I went into the Algebra 1 class one day and looked at a problem that they were struggling with, and I said, let me see if I can do this. And I actually did it on the board. So I didn't even do it on paper. So I was like in real time working it out. And I used the formula that I learned with Miss D, and wrote it on the board and was like, there you go. Then I asked the teacher and looked at her and said, is that the right answer? And she said, yeah. And I said, I'm smart.
I love that.
Had
Good.
that boost of confidence again.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't get up on this board and look a fool in front of these kids.
So I want to kind of go back to when we were talking about, like when we're going to college. I don't know if it can be used for anything else. That's what I used it for. But could you talk about the National Guard supplementary grant?
Sure.
And how it can assist with
All right,
education
So
expenses?
how many in here talked to a recruiter and they told them that they come join the Guard and get 100% college paid for, right?
Yep.
All right. So we kind of talked a little bit about earlier was the FTA. So the FTA gives you the 16 credits. So if you're going to go full time, how is that 100%?
It's not enough.
Right. So
Yep.
Indiana has a National Guard supplemental grant. The National Guard supplemental grant. Now I'm going to speak just for Army right now. Air Force is a little different, which is we'll hit that too. It's for Air Force and the Army here in Indiana, and that is other than what I think you were using the FTA as well.
I've used all of them. I'm currently just using Post 9.
Okay. So when they first come in, that's all they have right now through the state is the National Guard supplemental grant for the Air Guard. For the for us, for the Army, we have FTA and the National Guard supplemental grant. The National Guard supplemental grant is just that. It's a supplemental grant after using your federal tuition assistance, okay? But it is only able to be used at the state institutions. Now, there are things in motion to try to make some changes with the National Guard supplemental grant that will probably benefit some people that are going to other institutions, but we don't know all that yet. Those things take time to make the changes, but it is for fall and spring only, right? So you have to use again, for the Army, you have to use your FTA first, okay? It has created some kind of issues with Army Ignited, with the previous Army Ignited system.
Yes.
We worked through all that, and we're still kind of working through some of the stuff. But that National Guard supplemental grant is just for the college, right? So it is just for that, and it goes straight to the school. It is done through a separate website because that's how most of these systems are, through ScholarTrack, okay, and the Commission for Higher Education. It's a different window than everything else. So FAFSA is what, March-ish time frame.
Yes.
NGS, National Guard supplemental grant is in June, okay? And then you use it for the year, right? So you can only use it for fall and spring again. So that's why it's important when people come in, for everybody, we talk to them about what funding stream is paying for what based on how many classes they're trying to take. So if you're looking at trying to take summer classes, you need to know that National Guard supplemental grant, as of right now, is not going to pay for your summer classes. Okay, so how do you pay for that? So that's kind of how we advertise 100% free tuition going to school in Indiana, as long as you go to a state school. Because if you do that, then you have your FTA, you have your National Guard supplemental grant, and that rate is based on what the school charges. So each rate is kind of different. So let's say if it's another 15 credits, then what the credits are what the actual cost is what the institution is charging. So it kind of varies from school to school. It is also available to be used at the master level. So it used to be just undergrad.
Just saw that.
Yep.
That
so
was last year, right?
It was last year, early last year, we got that changed to where now, like Sergeant Clifton, you don't have to wait until you have ALC complete to go get your master's because you just finished your bachelor's and now you want to use your master's. Or to get your master's. So that was great for us. And now FTA is the same way. So that is another thing that's kind of helped us to give us some more money for NGSG. So we're constantly trying to make changes for NGSG to make it more open and available for everybody. But it is that additional grant for tuition that goes but it's only for state schools. Okay.
Public and state
right.
schools.
Public and
Yeah.
state schools. As of right now, yes.
Okay.
So what was your experience using the supplemental grant?
So in the Air Force, we can use it right away as soon as you enlist. So that's what I did. My first year, I sat in student flight for a year and went to college. So I used a supplemental grant for that. And I actually didn't know you guys had to use it with the federal TA. That's interesting. But pretty much everything else is the same. But we can also use it with the Montgomery GI Bill. So I know a lot of people that use it with that. And being on Title 10, they use the Montgomery and the supplemental grant to go to college. And so you can apply to use the supplemental grant and post 9/11, but that you don't need to. There's no reason for it. So I did that on accident, and then the VA office told me, "Oh, we're gonna take the supplemental grant off. You don't need that." And I was like, "Okay." But I did not know about the master's degree until I think yesterday when I was asking people at my unit about it. And it's an additional 2 years on top of your 4 years with the supplement, like with your bachelor's, which I thought was really cool to be able to use later on.
Yeah, and it just covers a bachelor's and a master's, correct?
Yes, at the undergraduate rate right now for the master. So it pays at the undergraduate rate, which again, things we're trying to change down the road that take time. But yeah, we're trying to change that. So, but I'm glad you brought that up because there are a bunch of different things with the NGSG. So like let's say private Clifton comes in, you could utilize NGSG right upon enlisting because you're not qualified to use FTA first.
Right.
But then once you come back and you're fully qualified, then you have to roll in and use FTA.
Okay.
So, and then NGSG after that. So, but yeah, the Air Guard can use it because that's the only thing they're getting. They only get the mil TA if they're on, I think, Title 10.
So we actually do have A&G Fed TA now, which I think came out this year.
Okay.
I'm not sure when it came out. I have one airman that's using it currently. But so we do have federal TA for when you're on Title 10 and then also non-federal TA for just traditionals. But you don't have to use your supplemental grant. Or you don't have to be on that in order to use a supplemental grant.
Okay.
But something I did want to mention is that when you were applying for the FAFSA, when you joined the military, you were then considered an independent student, which a lot of people don't realize that. So when you can mark independent as long as you are filing independently from your parents on taxes. And then that makes it so you don't have to put their income on your FAFSA. And then you are qualified for more scholarships and grants. So like I got the Pell Grant when I got back from tech school because I didn't realize that I could have done that my first year. So now I am an independent student and I've gotten the Pell Grant pretty much every semester. And it's a big, you get that money back as a refund from your school. So that's just money that you get to pick or get to pocket. So I think a couple of semesters I ended up with like $5,000 from the Pell Grant. That I
really
got to
wish
keep.
I would have known that when I was doing that, because that was the biggest kicker is I had to claim my parent, or I thought I had to claim that I was my parents' income on my FAFSA.
Yeah. So as long as everybody, as long as they don't claim you as a dependent and you don't claim to be a dependent, everybody's independent, then you can mark independent on your FAFSA and then you'll get a lot of grants and scholarships.
Oh, wow. Well, missed that. That's why we're doing this. So
Yes.
other people don't have to make the same mistakes we
yes.
have. Yeah, I used the supplemental grant too. And that was, I think there was only one semester that I had to go in the summer. So I didn't get to use the supplemental grant, but like the FTA, I still had some on my FTA. So I ended up pretty much going to college and getting my undergrad for free. So it really is important if you want to go to school to check out what educational benefits you have and what you can apply for. And speaking of which, what is the application process for utilizing these benefits? It's a little crazy.
So each one has its own. And that's why, like, we strongly recommend when when we try to hit all the RSPs, get the information out. But when the soldiers come back from whether it's AIT or they just enlist, we strongly recommend that they reach out to us to make sure that they get them all filled out and submit everything. So that way there's no issues that running, a lot of when they come back, they're up against the clock to try to get started and get all this stuff submitted. And sometimes their parents are doing it for them before they get back from AIT to start in this, the fall semester. So we always recommend that they go to the website, right, and hit the education consultation form and then get a hold of us. And we'll reach out to them to basically sit down with them either on the phone or, in person to make sure all those things get filled out, because GI Bill is one process through the VA.gov, okay? But you have to make sure certain things are updated in the system or you're going to get denied. If you get denied, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Our office can help with that stuff. So we want to make sure that all the soldiers understand what they need to apply or where they need to apply and with what and what needs to be done before they do that. So, FTA is your first, right? But you have to have your FAFSA done if you're going to use National Guard Supplemental Grant. So there's a lot of things that are on there. So you got FAFSA. FTA is Army Ignited. Okay, you apply there. It's really easy now that they jumped into the Air Force system. Thank goodness. Okay, so now the site actually works and the soldiers can log in.
Wait, you mean there was an Army website that didn't work really
right?
well?
I know.
Oh.
Surprising.
Who would have thought of that?
They bought the program on Amazon. But so now that we're in that system, it works. With that, then you have the National Guard Supplemental Grant that you apply through Scholar Track, which is why you have to have your FAFSA done when you're applying for state aid. So all these things kind of go hand in hand. And then if you apply for the, you want the GI Bill, we talk to kids all the time. and they think everything's automatic when they come back from AIT. Like, just because I signed up and I got these benefits, it's going to start on its own. It's not that's not how it happens. Like, if you submit your VA.gov application and your MOS hasn't been awarded, or your high school diploma is actually not in your iPerms and it's not showing you're completed, you're not going to show eligible for any of these benefits. So you're going to get denied. And now your parents are going to start freaking out because you're getting denied, and they think your recruiter lied. And it's just this whole whirlwind that we deal with all the time right before the semester starts. Nonstop, we're talking to parents, kids, everything else, trying to get this stuff done, where we want them just to reach out to us in the first place so we can sit down there and give them a checklist of what needs to happen in what order to make sure that they're fully prepared to start their educational journey. Because it is a lot, especially when you're talking to, I started when I was 38 years old, and it was still kind of whatever, but 18, 19, sometimes 17-year-old kids that are doing it, and their parents on them to get this stuff done. There's going to be some stuff that gets dropped, and we have a little bit of wiggle room to get things fixed for them, but we need to know as soon as possible so we can make sure to get that done. So yeah, they need to reach out to us to get it done, but they can go to the Army Ignited website, Scholar Track to apply for NGSG, VA.gov for GI Bill. But the best thing is just to reach out to us, and we'll go back to them within usually 24 hours to set up a consultation between myself, Mr. Gadan, or anyone else on the team to make sure that they have everything they need in order to be successful for starting college.
And where can they reach you at?
On the IN.gov website. So on the Indiana National Guard website, underneath Education and Incentives, I have a quick link, so it goes straight to our webpage. But all our contact information is there. But at the top of our education page is a button that says Education Consultation. They can click that and fill out their information, and they go straight to our education distro. And then one of us will respond. Mr. Gadan usually responds within minutes sometimes. And then we'll set up an appointment for that soldier or their parents even, usually within the week.
Okay. We will be adding that form in the description. So check that out if you're interested.
So to add to that, the Air Force does not use.
Okay.
So for some of our things are different. So we do need to do the FAFSA, and our GI Bill benefits are on the VA website. There's also a comparison tool to pick, like if you don't know which one to use, you can use the comparison tool to see how much money you would get based on where you're at and like how many credits you're taking, stuff like that, which was really helpful for me when I was trying to decide which one to use. And then for the NGSG, we do it on Scholar Track. And then for TA, we use AFVAC, which I think is Air Force Virtual Education Center. It's in the Air Force portal, and everything you need's on there.
Okay.
So that's the only difference.
So we need to link up with the Air Force Education Office, and that will also be in the description.
Yes.
If you need Air Force benefits.
You're just adding on more to the description.
Yes.
It's going to be long.
Yeah, I've tried doing the benefits process 2 years by myself and then 2 years with help. I still have loans from the 2 years I tried to do it myself. So
I think I remember that.
yeah, so it's definitely a huge benefit to reach out. There are so many deadlines and things that you need at specific times, along with signing up for classes and the demands that your college needs from you. It's a lot. For someone to take on themselves. So like reaching out to the education department, it's like having a team instead of all on one person. So I really loved that.
Because if I remember correctly, I believe I talked to you, because I always use you as an example of when we talk to soldiers and find out there's always soldiers going to school paying out of pocket when they don't need to.
I was
So
struggling.
you're not the only one. Like every time we go talk to someone, there's always someone that's been like, I've been paying out of pocket for 2 years. And it's like, why? Right? You just need to ask and get to the right person, which is our office. And we'll make sure that we have, like I said, wiggle room in certain areas, but we can make sure we'll fight for you with the institutions and all these other places to make sure that you get what you're entitled to get, as long as you're in good standing. Obviously, that's the big thing, right?
Yeah, that's very important.
To add to that, so if you are just doing like general education and you are worried about it transferring to your school, you can always do it at Ivy Tech. So for Indiana, Ivy Tech transfers to all state schools, and they have to take those credits. So like I took physics at Ivy Tech, and they do match with, that's when I used Fed TA. They will match the tuition cost for that. So then it's covered 100%. But I've used Fed TA at Purdue, and they don't match for whatever Fed TA is going to pay. So then I ended up having to pay out of pocket that semester for that because I didn't want to touch my supplemental grant. And there was more that I was going to add. to it. Never mind. I can't remember.
Well, I know that you've used a lot of the benefits, and
Mhm.
I think you have too, Sergeant Clayton. Do you two mind talking about those benefits, like which ones you've used and how that panned out for you two?
Sure. Do you want to go first?
Okay. So I've used FTA, Federal Tuition Assistance, when I was doing a second master's program. So when I initially learned about FTA and how you can use it, because I already had a bachelor's degree and I already had a master's degree when I initially enlisted, I was told it can be used up to a master's level, right? So I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go find another master's program to get into just for the
Mhm.
sake of saying I can use benefits, and joined an ed leadership principal program through IU. And then I used FTA to be able to take a few classes through that program. And then when I did the COVID orders and learned that I was qualified for the post 9/11 GI Bill, I put a pause on the principal program because I said, well, I need my PhD. And if this post 9/11 GI Bill is going to be paying for that, I'm going to utilize that because that's more valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started to use the post 9/11 GI Bill to pay for my PhD, and just completed that. And they do give a monthly housing stipend. But what I did learn when I did the comparison tool on the VA's website to look at what my school, because it's a private school, so I knew they had a cap
Okay.
Mhm.
on what they would pay. And then I was looking at, okay, well, what is the monthly housing and this and that? So it was telling me that based on the percentage that I qualified for with the post 9/11, my housing stipend would be about $900 a month.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, $900 a month? Cool. Like, that is
Mhm.
phenomenal. An extra $900 a month.
Mhm.
And then when they sent me my first payment, I said, excuse me, something's wrong. I called the VA like, this is only $469. What happened to my 900? And they're like, oh, well, because you have your classes online, you only get half
Oh,
of what that
Oh.
monthly housing stipend is.
okay.
Which is what you were mentioning earlier about. Okay.
Yes. So the VA, because I've used it for online, and it's 50% of like the nation's average housing cost. So it ends up being about $500 a month.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if you live in Chicago,
That's not going to go very
that's
far.
not very far.
That gets
Yeah.
you your groceries, I
That-
think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was a little mad about not getting the $900, but I said, you know what? This is $469 more than what I had. So we
Mhm.
just gonna make
Yeah.
it work.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And my classes are online. They were online for the sake of, I'm like, well, the school is, the campus is based in New Orleans. And I'm like, I'm not flying to New Orleans to go to class just to get $900. Like, we're not doing that.
Mhm.
So I thought it's still very beneficial at the end of the day. It's $469 that, like I said, that I don't have before, right? And then they're covering the cost, part of the cost of the tuition. So to me, it's still a win-win.
Right.
Mhm. I've used federal TA, yellow ribbon, post 9/11 GI Bill, supplemental grant. I think that's everything that I've used. So I started with a supplemental grant my freshman year. That went pretty easily. At the time, we didn't have Scholar Track, so you just filled out the form and turned it into the education office.
Mhm.
I've been in school for 7 years. By the time I graduate, it will be 9. I've switched my degree 4 times. So I've been through it.
That's okay.
When I went back to school, I wanted to, my freshman year, I was going to be a pilot. So when I went back to school, that's what I went into, and I used the post 9/11 for that. So they covered all flight fees, all tuition costs, every other cost that you can imagine the school adds on. So like at Purdue, you have Polytechnic fee, you have the gym fee, you have
Mhm.
if you have on an online in the Polytechnic program, we have a differential fee for like $100 or something. They cover all that, and then you also get your housing stipend. The housing stipend, I got 100% of the post 9 since I did my tech school and basic training was about a year, and then I
Okay.
had 2 years of active duty in Terre Haute.
Okay.
So I hit the 3-year mark. Um, so my benefit is the equivalent of an E5 with dependents in my area. That's how the post 9/11 payments are. So wherever you live, E5, even if you're not in E5, you get the E5 dependent rate. And then when I enlisted, I got a kicker. So I also got an extra $350, I think, for that
Oh,
each
that's
month.
awesome.
So now I'm getting about $1,800 a month for housing, on top of them paying all of my college fees. And then when I was on orders, I used federal TA for that. And one semester I went to Purdue, one semester I went to Ivy Tech, and it's pretty, since I knew trying to apply for TA was difficult because there's a very small window to apply. It's like you can only start 45 days beforehand, and then in Terre Haute we are dealing with Right Pat as our education office since we're a really small guard base.
Mhm.
So we were having to go through them, and then they're like, "Oh, we don't really know what you need to do." So it was a whole thing, but it ended up working out. The biggest thing that I learned from federal TA and the supplemental grant, do not pay anything for your tuition if you know you've met all the deadlines. If you've met all the deadlines and like the guard is just taking a while to pay out to the school, don't pay it, because if you pay it, you're not going to get that money back.
Right.
And you can, like, I've had holds on my accounts for registering for classes because it's the middle of the semester and nothing's been paid out yet. If that happens, you can go to your VA office and they will help you. And if you're using the post 9/11 or any GI Bill, really, the VA office is there to help you,
Mhm.
and they might be more help than your education office at your base. At least that's what I've
Mhm.
noticed, because they have access to the system versus like our education office doesn't. They can really only help you with the supplemental grant or the federal TA.
Yeah. And when I was going to school, I graduated from IPFW. Well, now it's PFW. I just dated myself on accident. A lot of colleges and universities do have like a veterans, a veterans office that's there. They have people most of the time, their prior service, that have used some of these benefits, and their job is to help students / soldiers / airmen get their benefits. And so there also may be somebody at your university or college or whatever that can assist you. They were helpful with me when I was going through.
So specifically for us, we just, if it's for our benefits, I know since you guys are going through Right Pat and whatever they're doing for their FTA, but for ours with Army Ignited, we have full access. So schools no longer have the ability to get into Army Ignited like before. We can now. So we have a NGB rep that works on our team. She's a region for here, Sharma Wolf. Most of you have seen the emails from her. And then I have an access to where I can get in there along with Mr. Gadan and Mary. We can all get in there to kind of see. If it gets to the finances part of it, that's when we send it to Sharma, who will send it up to her boss. But we can get in there and pretty much see basically if it's been paid and things like that. So a lot of times we are the conduit to get to the colleges, because we have a great relationship with a lot of these colleges, but we want the soldiers to come to us unless it's VA, GI Bill specific. Because a lot of times, like I think Purdue, you're going to Purdue, West Lafayette,
Yes.
or Lafayette.
Yes.
We talk to, I think it's Morgan and her team there at the Success Center at Purdue all the time, and they reach out all the time, especially within GSG, and they're getting a lot. We went up and gave them some training on Army Ignited and kind of how that works now, and so we've got a really good relationship and the ability to get in there and kind of see it now. Whereas before in some of the other systems we couldn't, but now we actually can. So it's great we're able to get in there and actually help them a little bit more and say, hey, this has been submitted. This is the PDF. The school is now doing this. They have to send it to be invoiced, and because it's a new process now with a new system for us. When we went from the old system, schools were in there doing all kinds of stuff, approving, sending things, and it's not that way anymore. So they just need to make sure they reach out so we can kind of be that middleman, because we know if you're 18, 19, 20, whatever age you are, and you're going to school and you're talking to your school, they're dealing with how many thousands of people.
Right.
They feel like they're not getting the traction, where if we're calling or we're reaching out to the commission to call on that soldier's behalf, we get a little bit more traction at our level, as opposed to a soldier feeling like they're not getting what they need to, because you could be talking to a kid that's a college student as well that doesn't really know who they're supposed to go talk to. right?
Right.
So those people rotate. It happens all the time. Well, my advisor told me this. Okay, you need to talk to the person that's doing the GI Bill certification. So who are you talking to? They never actually make it to that person, right? So
Right.
we can help. We can help with that.
And
awesome.
a lot of a lot of people at college, they're not used to dealing with like veterans. So
Right.
if you call and are like, "Hey, I need help with my tuition," they'll be like, "Okay," and they'll send you to the bursar. Or they're like,
Right.
"Hey, I need help registering for classes." They're going to send you to the registrar, even though those people are like, "Oh, well, you have a hold on your account." And like, you just have to wait, and then you're going to miss out on classes. So definitely going to the VA office, because they can put in like an override for the holds or any issue that you have. They'll advocate for you if you need it. I've definitely had that issue where I've had holds on things, and they've had to like go in and like call the bursar, call the registrar, and be like, "Hey, we need this removed," so then they can register. And I've actually worked with people. They went to Vincennes, and every year when they used their supplemental grant, it didn't get paid out on time. And the dean, they had to call the dean of students, and the dean of students had to write a letter on their behalf to the registrar, so they didn't get kicked out, or the bursar, so they didn't get kicked out of their classes every semester. And they were there for like I think 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more?
No, I think I'm all good. I'm all educationed out.
But before we close out, I think it'd be valuable to some of our listeners if you guys could each say like what you're in school for, or the degrees that you've earned, where you've earned them from. Probably should have done that at the beginning, but I still think it's valuable.
All right. So currently, I have an associate's degree that I just recently completed, and I am completing in the process of completing my bachelor's. 6 classes left in business and human resource management.
So I currently just defended my dissertation last week. So this is for my doctoral PhD degree in counselor education and supervision. And I will, now that I'm so schooled out, I'm going to take advantage of that FTA and finish that principal program since the money's still there.
Yeah, you can't get enough of it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
So I'm getting a bachelor's in organizational leadership with a minor in HR and an additional minor in design and innovation through Purdue. And then I also have my, I think it's called intelligence studies through the Community College of the Air Force. And I got that also for free through all the education benefits.
Very awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and chatting with us. Is there anything else that you feel like viewers should know?
Just make sure to reach out with all your questions.
Yes.
Right.
Take
Also-
advantage of the tutoring.
Yeah. Air Force doesn't have that. That's really cool. I think we should do something like that. My biggest thing is ask somebody that's used the benefit if you're having trouble. That's actually how I learned a lot about the GI Bill, because nobody that I knew used the post 9/11 except for one person. And all the information I was getting from like online resources was wrong. But she's like, no, you can use it in the summer. You can use it with like other benefits. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't talked to her. And then you also have to know who to ask and the right questions to ask, because if you ask the wrong questions or don't know what to ask, then going is not going to be helpful. So I would say find somebody that's used the benefits and then have them help you navigate the system.
Yeah.
And check out the websites, check out the app.
Yes.
And then I think we have the education branch on the text platform as well.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
would be something very beneficial if people want to know about those deadlines or any new things popping up.
Yeah, for sure. It's daunting sometimes to try to get all these resources taken care of, but it's so important. And they're there for you. Use them. But thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated having you here. And it's Lima Charlie out.
Oh, just a lot of stations stepping on each other.